There's no amount of copywriting jujitsu that's going to sell a really bad offer.
You got to know if the offer's fatiguing before you decide to run something again. It's a lot of pressure. How do you grow into the kind of copywriter and marketer to actually handle that?
I was trying to be creative when I first started working with bigger clients. And I remember I had like a 30-day notice. They're like, Matt, you got to pick this shit up, bro. Like, if you have to go in and completely do something that a business has never done before, like, you should be paid handsomely.
And the biggest clients are actually some of the easiest people to work with. Like, for those watching, how did you actually end up getting a client like this?
You kind of have to learn all of the rules first before you can break the rules and get away with it, and it works. I would say the old Matt, the pre-dojo, probably would not have found these kinds of opportunities. AI is not going to be able to problem solve the way humans can. I think empathy is a precursor to curiosity too. I'd say for lazy copywriters who aren't going to deeply understand a client's business, AI can definitely replace them for sure.
How do you even go about applying any of this stuff to your own businesses?
10 messages per day is actually what we're doing. I know that if we send 10 messages per day, we're going to get.
Today I'm with Matt Hmel. Matt, it's nice to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Matt has generated over $40 million for his clients, and he's an email and growth marketer working in the online education and finance space. And I have so many questions for you because making that kind of money is, it's a lot of money for copywriting and email marketing, because a lot of businesses make that money on the front end, but they don't make it on the back end with email. So I can only imagine the kind of systems that you need to have in place to do that.
Yeah.
How do you do it? What are some of the processes that you let's say you close a new client and you're helping somebody grow and they want to dial in their email marketing and they actually want to get something proper set up. What would you start looking at doing for them?
So there's a couple of things too. When I work with growing companies, actually, this is really high level stuff. So if I get too much into the weeds, just let me know. But we'll work with vice presidents, like a VP of marketing. They want to know, the growth rate, the company is growing year over year, 25% or whatever. So we might actually forecast revenue on the email calendar. So for example, okay, it's November right now, November of 24. We want to know what we did in email revenue in November of 2023. And we're planning this in, August. We're what are we going to promote in October? What are we going to promote in November? And how much money did those things make last year? And we're planning because we want to beat year over year what we did last year. And so there's also looking at the cyclical trends. You're almost looking at the business as an investor, so to speak, how the market is doing. And when you're sending promotions that are making more money, you want to send more of them because that doesn't always happen throughout the year. Something might do way, way better than you expected it to do. And that's basically the strategy. So there's no amount of copywriting jujitsu that's going to sell a really bad offer or beat out a very, very bad time in the market. So we always start with the offer itself. You hear everyone no amount of copywriting jujitsu is going to sell a bad offer. So we always plan what's going to be a really great offer and what's worked really well in the past. What have we promoted in the past that's worked really, really well? And then we plan that in advance. So we're planning to sell something that the market is already buying, that our email list is already buying, that we know when we send it to our email list, they're going to buy it, right?
That makes sense, because I think a lot of people think that the email copy is going to do a 2 or 3x on the conversions, when we know it's maybe more realistically going to be a lot less than that, and it's much more to do with the offer and timing, like you said. I like that, because a lot of business owners, they put that expectation on the copywriter where they're saying, hey, our average in the industry is this number, can you hit it? And what you're saying is, let's look at how you did last year at the same time with a similar offer or the same offer, and let's aim to beat that this year. But let's also use what worked and do it again. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's also refining things too. So okay, let's say you launched a whey protein product or something like that, okay, last year. So then this year you might relaunch that same product. And like, you also generally want to account for, depending on your list growth size, how many more email subscribers you've added. You want to account for like a 10 to 20% decrease in conversion rates if you're going to be relaunching the same offer to the list. However, if your list has grown 10 to 20% in total email subscribers, then it'll likely equal out in terms of how much money you'll make. But then maybe you're launching a new whey protein offer. So maybe you're giving away like samples, maybe you refine the ingredients or something, you made some kind of like key upgrade, or maybe you're offering like a fitness book or something with the product, right? So it's a new offer, but it's similar to the one that you launched in the past. So that's another thing too.
So it's a combination of like, you got to know if the offer's fatiguing before you like decide to run something again as well. Like how would you go about knowing when the market's no longer going to buy the same thing as it previously bought? Is there a formula to that?
Yeah. So like 80-20. So, okay, let's say we launched a, like an ADHD training program or something to, therapists or something, and they train people with ADHD. And like, we launched this exact SKU. SKU is like an e-commerce, like the exact product, literally the exact product. And, we've been launching this thing for a while, and we've been using the same email angles because those email angles already work. So we might change like the subject line or the preview copy, the from name or the hook within the email, but most of like the meat and potatoes of the email itself, we pretty much just reuse because it's already proven. Like whenever we send it, it sells the product really well. So when you do that consistently, and then you notice conversion rates start to decline a little bit, like maybe you were doing $15,000 rev per blast, like $15,000 per email when you would send this out. And you notice it's starting to get a little bit less than that. And like you look in the data is huge too. Besides like the actual copy stuff, is like when I'm talking about the numbers and the rev per blast and stuff and like forecasting revenue, like you're always looking at the revenue data and stuff. So if we notice like, okay, email A, like we actually call this email A, and like we look at it, we'll dissect it in our analytics, like what email did we send on this date in the past historically, and we'll look at the actual email itself and we'll see, okay, that's like this email, maybe it's a control, an email control. And you notice that same exact email is starting to drop in conversion rates, and so are like the other ones that you put in the promotion. Then that's when you kind of know it's time to freshen up the copy itself.
Okay, interesting. I like that. It's very, you got to have a lot of your data dialed in. I mean, just like super zoomed out. I think a lot of businesses, they don't have their data dialed in to this level.
It sounds so cliche, but like one of the biggest things in marketing is just find what's working and like double down on that. And it's almost like as copywriters, so many times, as copywriters, so many times we want to be creatives and come up with like new cutting edge ideas and stuff. And like, there's kind of an 80-20 to marketing, whether it's like, if you're in email marketing, even media buying, like media buyers are most of the time, I'd say a lot more data driven versus copywriters and maybe email marketers too are like the same way. But I almost treat my email accounts that I manage like a media buyer would, and I do more of an 80-20. So like I do 80% of what's already tried and true, what I know works to this list. And then 20% I'll spend on like trying to create a new email control or doing something that like it might work, it might be a total grand slam, or it might flop, but I'm giving like myself the flexibility to create and refine things and like test over here while still hedging my bets with the other 80% of what's already working, because that kind of gives us more security in knowing that if we're going to promote something, we know that we're doing 80% of what's already working, and we're going to make money. Yeah. We're going to keep growing the company versus 20%. If that 20% of testing flops, whatever, we still have 80% of what's already working. So that's how we can predictably keep growing the company.
I like that a lot. There was a client I worked with 5 years ago that I constantly had requests from the team, whether it was, hey, we have a new job available, can we make an email for it? we have this new product that we just created, can we have an email for it? And I eventually started to feel like with that list, it was 500,000 people. I started to reach the point where I felt like it was almost investing. Like each email became almost an investment. I said, okay, there's opportunity cost. If we're going to send an email to this job thing, you're costing the company $10,000 to make that.
Wild you're saying that. Yeah.
Right? And it's like, you have to see it that way. And you say, oh, we should just send an email to this thing. I'm like, yeah, but every single time that you promote something that's not the data proven thing, we're missing $10,000 of revenue. And I started to actually tell them, like, you got to decide, like, is it really worth $10,000 to promote this job to the list? It's a very expensive email, you know?
It is. Yeah, it's actually wild that you just said that, because very, very, very few people see it that way. But that's like how it actually is. If you are working like a growing 7, 8, multi-8, 9-figure plus company that like actually cares about consistent growth, people think that email is free. Like it's your owned audience and you can just send emails and test things. But like, dude, email is not really free if it is a key revenue driver for your company. Like you got to think about, in the newsletter space, people will buy ad space inside of emails, right? To get an email with their offer in front of it, right? And they'll spend a lot of money, to buy ad space. But you got to think about it too. It's not just free to really send an email to your list. Like you are technically buying ad space against yourself, because let's say you're supposed to make $10,000 rev per blast, right? Because those are the consistent KPIs of growth for your company, right? And like, if you look at the macro of the entire company, okay, $100 million in revenue, like 20% through email. Okay, that's $20 million per year. We want to make an email revenue. And then we reverse engineer, like, how do we hit that 20 million? Now you're getting a lot more tactical and strategic of like, the revenue drivers, the things you're putting on the email list. And then, so like, that's a little bit more macro. You get more micro and you get to kind of see how the things play together. It's not just free to send like an email to the list. Like it might cost you 10 grand. You might lose 10 grand by sending an email that doesn't really work. And then you do it again, and then you do it again. So then like, you're looking at offers that don't work that you're promoting to the list, like smart VPs and like stakeholders within the company, whoever oversees like the company's financial health, right? If they see someone that's sending stuff to the list that's not really contributing to the bottom line, like they're going to yell at you, right?
Yeah. I mean, in this case, I felt like it was going on a few deaf ears, because I seemed to just be put in that seat and they hadn't figured out scale to the level I think your clients were or are currently doing this. But it's so true. Like if you reverse engineer, like you just said, let's say email list produces or is responsible for 20 million a year. Let's say 50% comes from the auto responders. So let's say your daily broadcasts are responsible for 50%. Let's just be generous. Let's say it's 50%. Okay. So 50%, that means 10 million a year. You're looking at about $800 and something thousand a month that your emails have to generate. You divide that by, let's say, an average of, let's say 40 emails, because maybe you have a couple of double days for promotions. So 40 emails a month from 800K. Every email has to generate $20,000. That's like it's like every single email that you send to that list is no longer like, it's no longer just this free list. Every time I send a bad email, it's costing us $20,000 potential revenue we could have made. So it's a lot of pressure. How do you grow into the kind of copywriter and marketer to actually handle that kind of responsibility?
Yeah, man. So I'll actually tell you the truth. Like I was trying to be creative when I first started working with bigger clients. And I remember I had like a 30-day notice. They're like, Matt, you got to pick this shit up, bro. Like, this is not okay. We have a way that we do things here that works to this list. And like, we're not going to let you send emails to this list if, you're not going to follow our system. So that's actually a key thing too, when it comes to like knowing what works. Cause, different offers in different industries and different email lists too are going to respond to different kinds of messages, different kind of like formats and stuff of emails. Like some might like curiosity, click driver type of emails that go direct to a BSL. Others might like more story-based emails, emotional stories. Others might like direct offers, product launch type emails. So, my first big list that I was working with, I was trying to be creative and stuff, do like these story emails and stuff, and just they didn't hit. And for this list, what worked was regular direct offer, product launch, like problem, agitate, solution. True like Jeff Walker style product launch emails. We would launch a new offer, or we would relaunch an old offer, like that kind of style. And there's a particular style: like problem, agitate, solution, takeaways, transformation. Like that was kind of the email formula that would work. And so, yeah, like I had to buy into a system and do what worked. And then it's just repetition, man. It's just, I was an athlete, so it's not part of my standards or my DNA to like not play to the level that I should be playing at, or that my team needs me at. And so part of that, and then I'm just driven by mastery too. So once I kind of knew what worked, it was just like, I wanted to keep getting better and better and better at it. And I went from someone who got like a 30-day notice that was saying like, yo, you're not going to be able to like send these emails to this list, to writing multiple email controls that have been getting sent to the same list for 3 years now, selling 50K plus per blast, like, literally copy paste emails, multiple email controls for multiple offers. Yeah.
It's amazing what you've really done. It is actually really impressive.
Appreciate that. And investing into yourself too, man, like investing into coaching and mentoring. Like nobody else was really doing that at that commitment level. Like I was getting $1 billion copywriters and stuff, like copy chiefing some of my emails. Like I was diving deep into the books, like just consuming anything I could to become a better copywriter. And then at the same time, learning the offer stack too of what worked for that company. So diving deep into the data. And this is something too that's really interesting, is like you kind of have to learn all of the rules first before you can break the rules and get away with it. It works. That's something I'm really fascinated by too. So it's like I had to learn the exact system and email formulas that work for this list before I could kind of, go outside of the lines a little bit and like test things that were different that would work better than what was already working.
What kind of stuff would you, how do you cross the boundary, or like the limits, the rules? How do you know where to test stuff with those kinds of lists?
So it's probably like a 4-month period of learning like all the nuances and stuff of it. And it's like, it's almost like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, sort of thing. So then like, what's like that 4 levels, like unconscious incompetence, conscious competence, unconscious incompetence, and then conscious competence, or whatever it is.
It's unconscious incompetence, right? Incompetence, right? Yeah. Unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, unconscious competence, something like that. Like you progress to the point where you just do it effortlessly, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And there's a point probably like level 3 there where you kind of grasp like all the different nuances of something. And then when you reach that level of mastery over something, that's when you can kind of like spot the gaps to see what's missing. And then you can connect, what you're learning from outside sources and stuff, and how it can apply to this and how it will work. Because when you gain mastery over like a certain process, you'll also realize like when you apply something new, how that could mess it up. So you can kind of like hedge your bets a little bit and know like, okay, if I apply this, it will mess this up. But if I apply this, it will not mess this up. So there's really only a benefit to be gained here by applying this. And so I don't know if that really.
I think that makes sense to me. It's like you could have a split test. So, for example, maybe I would try this, right? If I'm writing an email that's got a 10K, it's responsible for 10 to 20K of revenue I have to create. Maybe my one split test would be slightly closer to the marketing message I want to test out, but not too far away from the current stuff. And then I would test to see like which one performs better. And it's like, okay, that angle actually was, the audience actually quite liked it. Let's try something similar to that again maybe next week or something. And then, okay, they actually do like that marketing message. And then let's try that a bit more, right? And you test on the broadcast email. Now it's like, cool, I think we created a control here. Now let's add it to the autoresponder, for example, maybe something like that, right?
I love doing that too. It's like, even when you do segmented sends too, like if you build a particular segment on your email list based on people who have taken particular actions, like maybe they bought product A, and then they bought product A like 30 days ago or something. And so you decide like, okay, let's just send a segmented email to these people, and it freaking bumps. Like now you can basically, like most ESPs, an email segment can easily be turned into a trigger for an autoresponder. So like if we have a segmented email send that did really well, we'll recreate that same segment, create that as a trigger for the autoresponder. Then now every new person who joins those same conditions essentially will get that same campaign that we took all the broadcast emails and just stuffed them into an autoresponder that worked.
That's also fun to me because I haven't worked on a list that size in probably a year now, almost a year. It's almost been a year, yeah. December last year I had a big list, but I really want to work on a list like that because you can create so many cool customer journeys. Like there's a lot of creative freedom within that box you absolutely have to create results in, and I think the cool thing for people that really love the skill and they go deep with it is that they get to do that. And one thing I want to bring up as well, I think for those who are watching that find it intimidating to work with big clients, I think from our conversation, it's actually a lot more empowering to see it from you're actually doing stuff that's proven for your client. You're not actually reinventing anything. Whereas a lot of copywriters come in feeling this pressure to like change things and like I gotta come in and
gotta make stuff better too.
Yeah, but it's like it's not really like that, is it? It's like you actually going in there the first 90 days, sometimes even longer, first 90 to 180 days is really just doing what they're already doing. So there isn't that much novelty you got to figure out.
No, yeah, that's a great point too. When it comes to like good copywriters, good clients, like that kind of balance and stuff. If you have to go in and completely do something that a business has never done before, like, you should be like a partner. Like you are basically building that business for them. If you are going into a business and like the expectation is you do something that they have never even been able to do themselves, especially if it's a very important aspect of their business too, like selling their products through their copywriting and stuff. Like you should be paid handsomely for doing that, like performance-based, some form of like equity or something. If they don't have something figured out already and you have to come in and figure it out.
Yeah, that's the case. I think a lot of copywriters don't see that though, because they haven't had the opportunity to work with bigger clients. But my experience has been the biggest clients are actually some of the easiest people to work with because of how dialed in their systems are. So like you might look at Matt and think, oh wow, I will never be a $40 million email copywriter. But I can assure you that some of the work that Matt does is actually a lot easier at that level than maybe a client he has to take on that's only at a 1 million per year, because there's all the stuff you got to try and test and figure out, and it could just completely flop. Because if they're only at a million, it's like they have a lot less proven stuff to convert. So there's a lot more work up front to figure that kind of messaging out.
Right? No, it totally is. Like I work with both kind of clients. Like actually, this is one thing. That's an opportunity that I have that I probably would not have gotten if we didn't do coaching together and stuff. Is I'm going to come in as a fractional CMO with equity in a 7-figure business like this coming year. And for them, like I'm going to have to build out a bunch of stuff, but obviously like the upside is way higher for me. But it's more difficult. Like there's a lot more stuff that I'll have to do versus like with the bigger clients, I just help them run their system pretty much. And like, yeah, I bring new ideas. Like I absolutely bring new ideas into what they're currently doing, like email controls and stuff. Get into automations like quiz funnels and stuff. Like one business, I won't say the name of them, but they get like 1 million sessions per month to their website. I built a quiz funnel for them, like opt-in monster slide an ad that like slides into the side of the homepage.
Nice.
Like get a free education, get a free personalized education plan in 2 minutes or less or whatever. And like people, it's an education business, right? So people are like free education business or a free education plan. Yeah. Like click that, they go through a quiz or whatever. And then we email them an autoresponder right after. So it's like, what topic would you like to explore further? Would a credible certification, interest you? And like totally reverse engineered, like the frame, like not, do you want to be certified? It's would a credible certification interest you? Who's not going to say yes? What topic do you want to learn about? And then they get the autoresponder emails and it's like, based on your quiz answers, the best education plan for you would be to start with one of these programs. And we've unlocked like a massive discount or whatever. It's like total direct response sequence
So,
of like, yeah.
How did they find out exactly what I wanted? That's so good.
Yeah. It's like that.
Quiz funnels are pretty untapped at the moment. I mean, they were pretty popular a few years ago. I'm not hearing a lot of businesses like in the education space. I think a lot more people could do it. I want to ask one quick thing. You mentioned that some of the coaching that we did together helped you get this client. Is that right? How did that happen? Like, how would you, like for those watching, how did you actually end up getting a client like this?
Yeah, so I would say it's different kind of behaviors and prospecting tactics that get you different kinds of clients. And I probably wouldn't have been posting on Facebook. I probably wouldn't have been networking as much. And indirectly, like I know that the behaviors and stuff that I was learning, like in the dojo and stuff, those were the types of activities that got me this client. And I also learned how to increase retention too, like increase retention of my own clients, like how to deal with clients, how to manage clients, like, turning new clients into forever clients, like those kinds of things that I would say the old Matt before pre-dojo probably would not be doing those same things and probably would not have found these kinds of opportunities. Like the reason I had this opportunity was because I went above and beyond for the client and like did things that weren't part of our initial agreement, like terms of work. But it's like you find holes in a business and like you solve them without even looking to get paid for it. And like eventually you become responsible for the things that you start doing. And then those become your new responsibilities. And then you just stack on more responsibilities. You take on more responsibilities. But then it's also, too, there's a balance between that and then also carrying yourself with the right frame that like you're a business owner. Like you could easily just go and do these things for other people too. So it's kind of like it's a funny art where it's like you do these things, right? You go above and beyond, but eventually like those returns they have to start harvesting in some way, shape or form, or you're kind of like, look, I could easily go do this for someone else. I have the results and the experience and like, you see the difference this has made in the business. And then, so also carrying yourself like a business expert. You're not a service provider. Like you're a business owner. You run your own business. You have other clients. I think there was something we spoke about, like lawyers or whatever, like lawyers have other clients or whatever. So like, you go above and beyond. That shows that you're different. And that shows that like you can do things that very few people can do. Whether it's, you have the intellect or skills to do it, or you just put in the extra effort. Because that's another thing too. For those who maybe haven't been doing something that long and maybe don't have the skills to like spot gaps in a client's business, you might just have to put in like extra hours like find those things to solve those problems. But either or, you're better or you're going to put in more hours. But like, if you solve more problems, eventually those become your new responsibilities. And then you still carry yourself as a business owner too. Like, I can do this for other people, and then they're going to respect you more as a person, but then they're also going to not want to lose you for their business because they see that your value that you bring to the company is absolute.
Right. There is a fine line, because when you do the free work or you do stuff that's above and beyond, if you don't frame it correctly, like you just have, it might be like, oh, I'm desperate to, get approval from you, and like, please pay me and please keep me. Like, it's a little bit needy, right? Whereas the way that you're framing it is like, hey, I see this opportunity for us, because we're business partners, all right, for us to make money. I want to help you with that. I went ahead and just did it because I know how to do it. Boom. Now suddenly the business owner's like, well, could you just keep doing it then? Because like, you did it pretty well last time. So you keep doing that. We could pay you for that. Appreciate that. I think about that for myself, right? I got a copywriter that I work with. He helps me with, a lot of stuff that I have to produce for myself and some other, other related work that's, client-based stuff. And guy always just goes above and beyond. Before I don't even come up with the let's say next project I need him to help me with. He already knows I'm about to ask him for help with that. And he's like, oh, by the way, I'm already working on such and such a thing. Here's the first draft. And I can tell you how that makes me feel as a business owner working with him. It's like, I value him so much. I don't want to, compromise the relationship. And I respect he has other clients. I respect he's busy. I respect his time. And I think it's because of that. And it's like, I've noticed this for one of the clients I used to work with. I coasted for a little bit with that client. I got comfortable. It was about 9 months after working with them. I started to get a little comfortable, and I was like, I got this thing on autopilot. I'm chilling. I gave them a report every week. I didn't drop any of the quality. It was just, I wasn't going above and beyond anymore. And the client started to actually want meetings with me every week. It was subtle. He was like, hey, can we have like a one-on-one sync every week? And when I got on the calls, he was like, can we do this? And can we do this? And then I started to find myself being like a bit of an order taker. And I was thinking, why does this guy want meetings with me when the first 9 months were fine? And I'm making him good money. We made $2.5 million in 1 year from the email list. So it's not like I wasn't making him money. And I took him from, look, they scaled as well. So I'm not going to take full credit, but I did help them go from $7K a month to like $200K a month. So like, I did help them, And so I was thinking, why is this guy like not particularly happy with the work anymore? And I realized it's not that he's not happy. It's just that he is no longer, he feels like if he doesn't do something, that it's not growing. It's just stable. And I said, okay, I know what to do. So from that week on, every time I gave him a report, I told him, here are a few things I'm working on next. Here are a couple other things I want to do.
I need your help. I need your perspective.
Yeah. And he was like, okay, like I kept asking him, I need your perspective. I need your thoughts on this. I need your thoughts on this because I'm about to launch this. What do you think of this idea for a promotion? What do you think of this idea for the split test? What do you think of this idea? And he said, sounds like you got it, Matt. I trust you. You just go ahead and do your thing. And then he backed off. He didn't want the one-on-one calls anymore because he's like, and it was so it was a really nice almost split test, like a real person split test. Because I was like,
here I was, he wanted a one-on-one.
Yeah. He wants help with all this stuff. He wants to get on one-on-ones, to get a sync. Now that I'm taking initiative and taking charge with this, he kind of backed off a bit. So I'm a big believer. A lot of clients that people think are nightmare clients are just clients that are trying to create their own systems to try and run the department because you didn't create the system. Because you're just a passive teammate. You're not you're a business partner because you're actually leading it. Whereas a lot of copywriters, they're kind of just passively waiting for their next instruction. You're not going to be able to do the same thing. If you're watching this and you're thinking, oh, I want to do, what Matt's suggesting and do stuff for free and like go above and beyond. It's not going to work if you're coming from that frame of passively waiting. It's just not going to work.
And it's also, it's taken extreme ownership over your own results too. Like for me, I'm not the kind of personality where like, I just can't watch things suck to put it bluntly. Like if I'm doing my workflow over here and there's like other things attached to it, right? Because there's so many different things that can impact a company. Let's just take email marketing, for example. Like if the offer sucks, the offer could be better. Or if you're sending emails and people are clicking on links and going to a page that isn't optimized, right? Like it's not going to convert. They're going to a page that's not optimized. So maybe you can recreate the sales page, rewrite it or something, or do something with the sales funnel, or like if their list isn't growing, right? And then you send out emails, like unsubscribes are inevitable. So if the list isn't growing, the list is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And then most of the time, right, like the email revenue is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller too. Like for this client, we were running trial ads, and they had like a custom built site. And I think I told you about this, but basically we weren't getting our ad costs were really expensive because people would have to go to like this trial site. They'd have to create an account before they bought and stuff. So like I recreated a whole new funnel, not even so much to help the business, to be honest. It was really just because like I wanted the list to keep growing. Because I was like, this is like, I run the email list. Like one of my key KPIs is list growth, right? To maintain a healthy list. But like, you know, so I recreated the funnel just so we would get more customers on the front end. So it would help the list grow. And like by doing that, I lowered their customer acquisition cost by 4x. And like, you know, now the list was getting
You quoted their acquisition costs
by 4x just by changing the funnel. Yeah, by building a new funnel. And like the funny thing,
that's awesome.
I mean, that's wild. Like that's transformational.
That's crazy. That you can.
Wow, that's crazy. I can't imagine the scale that they can do when it's 4 times cheaper to run ads.
I selfishly did it just because I wanted to grow the email list, because them like not getting their ad costs being that expensive like impact my ability to run the email list. I was like, no, I don't like this.
I think it's funny that a lot of business owners put the KPI of list growth on the email marketer though.
I find that
it's always weird. I'm like, is it really me that's growing your list? Because you've got the funnel. Like it is kind of me, but then you have to let me do other stuff outside of email, which is actually a really interesting frame, right? So for those watching, here's an idea for you. You can frame everything in a business around the list. All the front end stuff, all the ads, all the funnels, everything that's not your department, you can just frame as growing your list. So you can actually come in as an email marketer, and then you like want to upsell your client on getting the ads and working on the funnel and working on conversion rate optimization. You can just say, I want to optimize for list growth because that's my department. So I have a responsibility to be in the front end. And it works because they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that is your KPI. So let's give you what you need. Now suddenly you can see the data that the media buyer is looking at. You can suddenly look at ClickFunnels, conversions, whatever. That's a big hack, because a lot of people think it's like, oh, it's ads. It's like a completely different thing. It's like, no, it is list growth, right? What else do you do to grow a list besides the front end? I mean, you can lower the unsubscribe rate. You could re-engage people, I guess. Those are 2 other things you could do to keep the list
growing slowly, right?
Pop-up forms, like depending on what kind of business it is, you know, like if it's e-commerce or if they have like a blog or something like that, like conversion rate optimization. So if clients do have a website, then that's something too. Like I just did a report. I'm actually working with another education business that does have a blog, like pretty established client. And I put together an entire plan for them to change their checkout process on their website. So like at a high level, it's called conversion rate optimization. So it's like you're getting all these people going to a website. How can you convert more of them? That's conversion rate optimization. And like there's different little things that you can tweak here and there that will bump the conversion rate for these people. They had another thing, like I don't know why it's so common for these education clients to have like these membership sites, and like it just tanks conversion rates, right? Like if you're an education business just watching this, don't have customers have to like create an account before you get money from them. Like get their payment info, freaking acquire them first, then email them their login credentials after you've already gotten their information, like their name, email, and their money, their credit card details. So just by doing something like that, like we didn't implement it yet, but that was part of like the analysis that I did, deep dive their email list and everything. Like we would boost their conversion rate by 4x, maybe even more, like 5x.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Won't give the specific data, but yeah, like I just noticed people would go in through the checkout process. They'd have to one click button, like sign in through Google or sign in through Facebook or whatever. And then it's like, you know, one step. And then the second step is like putting these things. they would have to put in like an EIN, like some business number or something, right? Tax ID.
Before they even pay?
Before they got to step 3 to actually freaking buy. And it was like, are you a new customer? Like, do you have an account, or are you creating a new one? Like that sort of thing. So much complexity before you even get to just buying. And I was like, yo, so someone clicks this, they go to a checkout page and like they buy, and then you send them their login credentials after they buy. Like that alone, like you'll usually get like a 4 to 5x lift. Like, you know how people are so lazy? I mean, like like consumers are so lazy. Like, especially the front end product was like $7 too. Like it's literally lunch money, not even in like today's day and age. Is it worth like for some people, it's not even worth $7 to like create an account for something.
I wonder if there's a psychology behind it though too. Like besides just the lazy aspect of it, it's also like once you've paid for something, now it's official. Whereas asking for all this information up front, I don't know, it doesn't feel as organic. It's like, I want access, I'm paying for access. Like that's the next step.
Well, it's like
the step after I pay is activation. Why would they put activation before the close? It doesn't.
It's like, I think Jordan Belfort wrote in his book, Straight Line Selling Secrets. He said, basically, like, you're asking for someone's money. What you're asking for is their stored resources, right? Like before money was even a thing, I guess, like way back in the Stone Age times, our brain processes like money as like our stored resources. But like in today's day and age, money is still energy, right? It's physical energy, it's cognitive energy. Those are the things that create the money, right? The time or the energy, that's what creates the money. And so when I'm going through a ridiculous checkout process, like, is it easier for me to just literally Apple Pay or Google Pay $7 on my iPhone? Or does it cost me like more in literally cognitive horsepower to go through this checkout process? You know, like sometimes it costs me like $7 more in stored cognitive resources than it is to just pay the $7. That's my thought process for it.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. For me, I mean, when I think about it, I almost feel when I don't want to give somebody that much of my information. Personally, I almost don't. I'm resistant. Why are you asking for all of this? Why are you asking for my business number? Why are you asking for this? Why are you asking for that? Whereas I feel like after I pay for something, it's like, oh, they're legit. I'll give them everything.
I don't know, for some reason,
I feel like after I pay, I'm more willing to give them all that information.
It's like, well, yeah, it's like psychology, foot in the door technique versus door in the face technique. I mean, even like info products and stuff, man, like, you know, literally just do full name. You might not even need a phone, like full name. Maybe you put the full name, phone, email, and then payment, like step 1, contact information for your account. And like, even, you know, if you're selling info, like it's a course or something and it's a front end course, like a tripwire offer, even what you can do is like you could put like the email field, you put like parentheses for your account. So like people are like, oh, you don't even really like need my email. Like, you know, it just gives a reason. Like, we need your email for your account. And then for the phone number line, it's like for book updates or something like that. They just do a reason. Like the psychology there too. Like you're given a reason for it. It gives less resistance. And then payment information is obviously like, you got to put in your payment info so you can buy the thing.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, when you buy stuff with these lower ticket offers, you can build a really crazy buyers list because they're going to give you all their real information because they want access to the program, which is nice. Whereas a lot of like free, you know, and then you just get it for free. A lot of fake emails. I want to bring us back to something real quick. You mentioned the thing we talked about with lawyers, and I want to get into a little bit of the client getting aspect of stuff. You know, people don't expect a lawyer to be your full-time employee. It's like, it's obvious that they have other clients. You know, what is the kind of like that frame? How do you frame to clients, let's say on a sales call? If somebody said on a sales call, like, we want you to work with us exclusively. I've had a lot of clients I've been able to convert into a freelance relationship, but they say they want exclusive. I'm like, what you really mean is you just want me to prioritize the work because I can get it done, you know? Is there something that you would say to somebody like that that says, hey, you should work with us exclusively?
Yeah, so I think about all the job duties that are required. And the thing is, like, I'm a pretty energetic, like, restless person. I mean, on calls and stuff, I'm pretty nonchalant like this, but like, I love to work and get better. And if you want this much demand, like all of my time, the thing is, like, the job scope here that we're talking about, I can get it done in like 10 hours. I could do 5 people's jobs, literally, like in 40 hours a week. Like, I could do literally 4 people's job. I could run your entire marketing department, like, with that time. So do you want to pay 4 salaries? It's like, that's kind of what we're talking about here. And even still, I could probably I could do 4 people's jobs in 20 hours a week, like, realistically.
And the way you said it to me too, I almost feel like I should pay you now. Like the confidence is just so there, man. That's cool. I love that. That's a really good line. I think it comes from your own belief, though. I don't think you like have that memorized or scripted anywhere. It's just that's just how you see it.
And when you do, yeah, like, there are people who work like full-time 9 to 5. Like, you know, I'm sure we definitely talk to people. Like, I live in New York City. There's plenty of people like work in finance, other marketing gigs, startups and stuff. And like, they'll work like 10 hours a week, basically, at like a 9 to 5 job, just because whatever, they're smart, like they get their job things done. And like, they're kind of just available on Microsoft Teams or Slack or whatever during like the hours of 9 to 5. But the actual work that they do, I mean, sometimes, like, I think consulting would be a good example. Like, we call it MBB. Like, that's like the big consulting firms like McKinsey, Bain and Company, BCG. Like,
there's so many memes about this, bro.
Oh yeah. Okay. Awesome. So like,
yeah,
sometimes if they're not on a project or whatever, they might have slow weeks. And so they're working maybe like 10 to 20 hours a week, versus maybe if they're staffed on a project or doing travel and stuff, it's maybe like 60 plus. But like the slower weeks, they don't really work that much. And it's like that for a lot of people at companies too, especially when you get to more like knowledge-based work, is like your workload will start to go down, especially if a company has like good systems and stuff, and like, you know how to run the system and like all of that. You could do the full-time job in like 10 hours.
Yeah. I think that I've noticed that as well as a freelancer as well. Just it's even without the actual workload being 10 hours, you usually expand the amount of time that it takes to do something if you feel like you have more time available to do it. Whereas if I have to write, let's say, a sequence and I have the whole week to write it and I had nothing else to do, it would probably take me 3 days. Whereas if I have a lot of other work, I'm going to finish it in one day and maybe next
one day. Save.
Yeah. Because I'll write the whole thing on Monday evening, just completely. Then on Tuesday evening, I'll edit it up and clean it up. Just give it a little bit of breathing space, you know. But I'll get it done in 8 hours max. Whereas, I could.
For me, like usually Tuesdays are like days I don't really take any calls or anything. It's just like, I just like get through all of the deliverables of stuff for the week.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting.
You know, to kind of cap off like that previous point is like, if someone wants you full time, I mean, there's a likelihood, depending on how advanced you are, that you could do you could complete your entire work week for them in like one day.
Yeah.
I think the reason for that as well, and this is just something for business owners as well to think about. I mean, I've noticed this personally as well, is that when you're a business owner and you're carrying all those things, let's just talk startups for now, but it's the same for like when you have a senior leadership team as well, because they're also technically running their own like mini businesses within the business, you know? It's like if you're a startup and you got to allocate 20% of your energy to sales, 20% to marketing, 20% to customer success, 20% to like, I don't know, administrative stuff, another 20% to strategy, everything else, the sand, right? Between the rest. So your idea of what the role customer success looks like is only 20% of what it could be, because you've only allocated 20% of your time to it. So when you hire somebody, you're like, I'm delegating that 20%. But the reality is, if you hire somebody full-time, they actually have, let's say that they're not as effective as you, it takes them 30% of their time, because they're not as used to the role as you. Within 6 months, it's only 20%. They have 80% of their time available to do all kinds of other stuff that you just never had the time to do in that customer success department, right? So it's like, as a business owner, every single time you delegate something and it goes off your plate, the expectation might be like, oh, this takes full time because I work full time and this is the kind of stuff I do. But the reality is, it's like, I'm only doing this 1 day a week. Delegate all that stuff. There's so much more stuff that person could do, but the business doesn't really know what that stuff is because they never really have the time to actually go and dig into that because they're so busy with whatever. So you got a VP of marketing. They've never really gone into the email department besides scheduling emails. They don't really know what the data looks like. So when they delegate that, they're like, oh yeah, full time, but they don't really know what that actually looks like. And I think that's part of the reason why, a lot of these businesses, they have they actually think it takes a lot more work than it does.
Yeah. And I think too, is like, there's a level of mastery over a process too, for you to actually, like, pretty much like what you were saying, there's a level of mastery to really understand all of the different inputs that are required to do the role effectively. And like, if you didn't build a system for it, if you don't have clear KPIs and like specific systems of like, okay, here's all the things that I'm doing for this department that I am now delegating. Like, you almost, instead of looking at outcomes, you look at inputs, outputs. You look at these were all the inputs that I was doing that created these outputs, and like the outputs or whatever is kind of a KPI in terms of like revenue that we want to have. If you scope out all of those things, then it allows you to have a little bit more of an understanding of what's required to do this effectively. And then you can kind of like give that to someone else. And I think not everyone knows things that granular or maps it out that much because they're in maybe a rush or something. So that's another thing to think about too.
Or it's a sense of priority. I mean, some businesses, they delegate their email department to somebody else because their number one bottleneck is front end. So they're like, all right, my priority is not the email list because email list is only 20% of revenue. I'm going to go carry the 80% and try and figure out the front end. I'm not going to get into the details. Let me get Matt to go and take care of it, So that could be another aspect of it. But I really like that, just that having such I think just bringing the client to the realistic expectations that whatever you're doing for them is something manageable with other clients. And I've often told businesses that it's better if I work with multiple clients because I get data on the industry. It's like, it's not so good if I'm just siloed into your operation and I just see your email list. Because what if something happens and I'm like not aware of what else is going on because the only thing I'm doing is this list, whereas there's so many times I've brought cross-industry ideas into a list because I thought like this idea just took off in let's just talk about BizOp for a second. This idea took off in the Amazon space. This concept of, leveraging AI into an offer. I'm writing this offer for real estate. Maybe we should incorporate some sort of AI booster aspect to our offer, and now we can add that to our marketing message, and that'll take off in the email list. And then you do it, and then it's like, oh, it converted. And it's like, well, I wouldn't have got that idea if I hadn't been working on multiple lists. So it's like, it benefits you that I'm one of the people in your business that sees what the whole industry is doing, and I'm not just sitting inside your business.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like a line between trust too, is I think a lot of sophisticated clients too have likely worked with a lot of different contractors, freelancers, agencies, and they've likely been burned before by some people. And so it takes probably a lot more time to build that trust for them to feel a little bit more safe of knowing that you're working with other clients too, right? And like you have access to their information, other people's information. And like, I think there's a certain sense of security of people wanting to like keep literally everything under one roof, that sort of thing. But it takes time of you going above and beyond, right? If you go above and beyond for a client and like you carry yourself a particular way, they're going to have respect for you. They're going to have trust for you. And then they're not going to want to lose you either. So like they're going to they're going to be more lenient with the things that you do. Like they're going to be okay with you having to do what you have to do, right? Like understanding that you have to create content, like you have to prospect, like you're a business owner too. And like, you're going to become more partners. You're going to have more mutual respect and trust in that sense. And like, it takes time for that to happen too. Like, it's not like you're just going to come into a company like day one and they're going to be okay with, I don't know, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it helps when you have a bit more of a presence and reputation, because then you can come in with the right, I mean, like your position, you're coming in as a partner, you're an email and growth marketer. So the frame is really strong. And it's actually what you do. It's not a fake frame, which is how some people just rebrand themselves. Like you actually have done the stuff that justifies the title, you know? But when you come in, I think a lot of people are more receptive to the way you work, because you're coming in and you're saying, hey, this is my process. I'm like going to match what you guys need and the processes that already work for you. Here's how I like to do that. Here's like the communication, like how we would, work together. And then, then they more receptive to that than somebody that gets on a sales call, or maybe not even a sales call, more of like a consultative strategy session, and it's like
brainstorm session.
Yeah, brainstorm. Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm happy to write emails for you. I can write your copy. And that's the gist of what that person can offer the business. It's like, it's not, you're going to become a commodity if you sound like that on a sales call, and you're going to sound like an employee, and they're going to treat you that way. And there's nothing to be upset about if you sound like that.
Yeah. There's also some like super alpha type of clients too, that like they want to dominate the conversation sort of thing. So like, that's another thing too, with like managing personalities too. Humor. I found like humor works a lot on calls and even in outreach too.
Still working on that one, but we'll get there. Yeah. Mine's not so great when I'm on sales calls, because I don't know. I think with sales calls, maybe I've loosened up a little bit over the last two years, because I'm not so attached as before. But in the past, I would get quite like, okay, this person introduced me to so-and-so. I got to really, focus on presenting myself correctly. But a good reframe I had was just focusing on the person I'm talking to. I think it's the same with the interviews. Like the first few interviews, I was definitely thinking about how I'm, my focus and appearance and like my presentation on camera. And now I'm just a lot more curious about what you have to say. And I actually think it's the same in sales conversations. Just focus on the other person. Are there any tips you have for people?
When you come from a place of strong empathy, like I think empathy is a precursor to curiosity too. And it's like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, those sorts of things. And I think people too, especially sophisticated clients, like probably have a decent EQ, IQ, like they can tell when someone's genuine and when someone's like acting and stuff like that. And I think when you're just so curious about like their goals and like where they see their company in the future and stuff, and you're not doing like a whole discovery process or like doctor frame, like, there's doctor frame, but then there's also like, no, like you are the freaking doctor to a certain degree, right? Like you're coming to the call with gravitas, like, you're an expert, so you don't have to play the doctor frame like you've been maybe trained to do in sales calls or something. And like, you don't have to do like cost of inaction and stuff types of questioning.
Yeah. What is this costing you for us to now work together today?
Yeah. Like, if you keep doing things the way you've been doing them and it's going in this direction, like, what's going to happen like a year from now if you keep doing it this way? Like, you don't have to do the tactics. You just kind of know, like from experience, like, no, like I actually know, like I had a client who was doing things this way, and it led to this. Like, you speak from experience, so you don't like you. It's almost like you learn the techniques first, and then like you come from experience, and then the techniques that you would learn on a sales call are like, they become unconscious and like not even techniques anymore. They just become like a professional way of discovery. And like, when you just put empathy at the forefront and like, you're actually curious about what's going on in someone's business, and like, you actually want to help them, all of a sudden, like you kind of realize, well, I mean, if they actually like don't do these kinds of things, like it could get bad. Or, you know, if they want to get to this level, like here's the things that they'll have to do, that sort of thing. Like, here's what I've done with other clients. You know, here's what I see like we could do. And I think like if you did this, like you could probably get this result. It's almost like not being overly enthusiastic too. It's like pretty serious. Like, no, I mean, if you did it this way, like you could probably get this result. Honestly, just looking at the data right now and based on what you've told me.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you look at the data of the business, it's a lot easier to see the trajectory. And I think a lot of businesses, they have the answers already for a lot of the stuff that they need help with. It's just more of buying their time back or having somebody actually do it. Or if they don't actually know what they're looking at. I found consulting a very interesting thing, because when I first started consulting, I thought it was providing all this expertise, and it technically is, but it became what my common email sense is not a business owner's common sense, because they're focused on other parts of their business. So the stuff that seems obvious to me is not necessarily obvious to a client. And so consulting, which is interesting, to me has become most of like me pointing out what's obvious to me that helps a business that's not obvious to them. It actually relieves a lot of pressure when you see it that way. At least for me, it made it a lot easier.
Yeah. And like a few things too on that is one, like if you haven't read Breakthrough Advertising, like read that book or just understand its principles, because you'll learn the different stages of awareness. And like usually when you're talking to a business owner who is in the market for hiring someone, that is a very problem solution aware type of person. And so you don't have to really talk in the words of like unique mechanisms or whatever. Like usually problem solution messaging works really well for a sophisticated B2B audience. And like, so how do you do that? Especially on sales calls, like problem solution. Well, with empathy, like you understand their problems really, really well. And like usually they know kind of what the issues are. They just want someone who understands what their issues are, right? And like you learn that because you work with other clients, and like that's how you understand the problems that this person is facing. So it's not like you're bringing absolutely new cutting edge ideas to the table. I mean, you can do that too. Like that's absolutely great to do. But at the first level would be to actually show like you understand what their challenges are, and like you do have the solution, right? Like that kind of thing. If they understand that, like you understand what their difficulties are, then it kind of shows like that, yes, you can help me buy back my time. Like you can do these activities too.
Experience is very underrated for biz op copywriters. You don't need experience. You don't need experience to become a copywriter. It's so easy. It's like, experience is very valuable. It's like the most valuable thing. In fact, you make a lot more money when you have experience. Sales calls are easier. Writing copy is easier. Getting results of business owners is easier. Experience is like the secret leverage that the copywriters who have been in the game for a few years have over beginners. Even though it's kind of obvious, BizOp has turned stuff different. Have you noticed a difference in the industry and how people perceive copywriters and marketers over the last few years?
I think so. I think AI has kind of made a big dent. It's carved a big hole in the market for sure, and not in a way that presents a lot of opportunities. I'd say for beginner copywriters who maybe don't have the experience of like AI is not going to know how to manage a client. AI is not going to be able to like, sure, there's meeting tools, right? Like we're using one for this, but AI is not going to be able to problem solve the way humans can. That's at least how I know. Like you'd have to build out a system and stuff. And like, there's a lot of nuances and stuff that AI can't really do that requires a human to run that process. And I'd say for lazy copywriters who like aren't going to deeply understand a client's business, who aren't going to come from a place of empathy, who aren't going to be like a good team fit, like those kinds of things, AI can definitely replace them for sure. But, that also means like, I think it's it's widening the gap for sure between beginners and experts, which is, it's almost like getting rid of we'll say like a lower middle class of copywriters, I would say, to where like you want to be like in the top 70, 80% or above, I would say, of copywriters. And like, if you're not there, like get there, you can, join coaching programs and stuff, like get feedback on your copy, like build the skill, learn how to integrate AI into your own workflow, because like that's another thing too, I think actually is something I completely brushed over as I was just saying all that now, is that learning AI and integrating that into your own copywriting workflow, I think will make you quite indispensable, because a lot of business owners want to know how they can use AI too. And like, if you learn the fundamentals of integrating, we'll call it AI integration. It's like a skill, we might even call it. Integrating AI into your own copywriting workflow, you're also going to learn how to integrate AI into other workflows too. And you're going to allow that company to become more efficient,
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think there's a certain type of stigma where people might not want to talk about how they use AI or whatever, especially like copywriters, because it might lessen their value. But it's like, no, actually, if anything, it's making my value more absolute, because I know what AI can do that I can't do. And I know what I can do that AI can't do. And then I know what me plus AI can do that neither of us can do. And I know that the end outcome for that business, what that's going to mean for your business, is going to be probably 2 times better than if you just tried to use someone who doesn't know how to use AI, or you tried to use AI alone. I mean, are you looking to compete on price here? You want to get something for $20 a month, or do you want to actually scale and be number one in your industry? It's like, depends on where you want to go with your company. Do you want a competitive advantage or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, AI is giving people an advantage if people are using it, so it's not enough to just be, just have AI. It's like copywriters who use AI outperform AI and also outperform copywriters. It's like together they're better, has been my experience.
It's also just showing like the confidence too, like, for lack of a better term, it's just showing nuts. Like literally, it's showing nuts, because like, if you show up, like, I mean, beginners and amateurs are afraid of AI, right? But like experts, the top experts are not afraid of AI. Like, they're using AI, and like, they know how to use AI because they're way better than AI, right? But they use AI to increase the output, if that makes sense. Like, they know their strengths and they know the AI strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Like, AI is not going to take their job because they're always ahead of it. And like, when you show up like, no, yeah, like I use AI for my process, but you can clearly see like the copy sounds like a real human. Like, I train the AI to find out all of my clients' core values, their beliefs, their politics, all of that. Like, it will sound more like you than you sound like you, to be honest. I maybe probably wouldn't say it like that, but like, some people don't have a distinctive voice that they don't even realize when they write copy until you actually dissect it through a process. You feed transcripts, emails, all of that through like an AI. Like, you could see the unique verbiage that people use, their language patterns.
It's very interesting.
It's very interesting. I never saw that until AI came out. I tried that with a few clients. You transcribe all the videos on YouTube for a client that has a YouTube channel. The kind of stuff that they say all the time. I mean, for my one, I put my own words into it. It just said that my main word is like.
So like, I need to stop using.
I need to stop using the word like all the time, because AI picked up on it. I knew I used it. I didn't realize I used it as much as AI picked up. I used it. So interesting. Yeah.
I used to do that pre-AI. I had a process for this that was in a Google Doc, and it was so manual. Like, pretty much I would ask clients these types of questions and stuff when we did our onboarding call. And then now I can just look at the past things that they've written before and like draw parallels. It's much faster and it's much better too.
Do you find that with AI being, the way it is today for copywriters, that there's more opportunity for business or for copywriters working with personal brands or very heavy direct response businesses, or like, where do you think that the best clients are hanging out?
That's a great question, actually, because it'll work way better for direct response businesses, but that also means like there's less nuance. So it's better for direct response businesses who don't require much of a nuance in their language, but that means there's way less opportunity for copywriters versus for brands. I would say when you can make something, because that's probably their biggest skepticism too, is like using AI copy, but it doesn't sound like them, that sort of thing, and then losing that personal touch. And I think it takes a trained copywriter too to finesse that a little bit better. So I'd say that's probably where the opportunity now is. It's like personal brands.
Yeah, that's where I've been leaning. I mean, that's where a lot of the people in the dojo have clients as well. So it turns out that most of them haven't really been concerned about AI because most of their clients say, I don't want to sound like a robot. Whereas in direct response, maybe you could take 100 ClickBank emails, feed it to an AI engine, and then you could tell it like, hey, here's our offer, here's our mechanism, here's our lead, or like the general way we lead the VSL, like pump out some ClickBank style copy. And you could probably produce 10 emails within an hour. And like polish them up, and they might even be controls because AI is really good at language processing, right? Whereas it doesn't work the same with personal brands, at least not yet. With a personal brand, I really have to teach it stuff. And even then it'll be like, it'll pump out some copy and it's like, okay, but that's not really the belief. Let's add a story here. AI doesn't know the story of the brand because it's never been taught that story before. So then you got to add the story manually or teach it the story. And it takes a bit more of a process, but you can actually see that. So that's where we've been going. We've been working on more of how to write copy for personal brands because of that like edge that they have, because you can combine the direct response with the voice, then you got a really good combo.
Yeah.
So tell me about the upside and risk aspect of how you do things, because you mentioned it really early in our chat. You were talking about like, working with a smaller, or maybe more of a startup business, there's a lot more stuff you got to set up early on, but there's more of an upside. Whereas when you're working with a pretty established business, it's a bit more about like reducing the risk that you don't make them the growth, you don't generate the revenue that's necessary for growth. Like, I heard you mention the word upside a lot. I actually wrote it down here, and like upside and risk. So do you see a lot of things like with that lens in business?
Yeah. So do we mean like, for my own business, or like kind of when I'm working with clients and like their businesses and stuff?
Well, I'm curious to know both, but maybe let's start with how you do it for other people. How do you manage that upside and risk for your clients?
Yeah. So managing the upside and the risk. Well, you want to have a base of something. I like predictability and consistency because it's a lot easier to scale when you have systems and predictability. That's what kind of leads to scalability, is you can double down on what's working. And then that's when you can jump into new acquisition channels and stuff too, like business owners, right? For example, let's say email is a core revenue driver for them, but then they hire an email list manager that allows them to buy back their time. Now they're a lot more free. Maybe they have more time to go to networking events and stuff, like build strategic partnerships with, particular people or vendors, like softwares, like stuff like that. Like an education client might have they might be able to get like clients a discount for a particular software or something like that. And then they get like an override on that revenue. Like that's a new stream of revenue that was untapped. And then maybe they want to build out like an affiliate program or something like that, right? Like, so it's all covering our bases first. That gives us the consistency. And then that frees up our time to like take the bigger swings and like do things that, might take longer to build, or might lose or might win. They might be like, they're the big grand slam wins, things that have a really high upside or could also lose, or things that would take longer for us to actually reap the rewards versus the other 80%. We want to hedge our bets by doing something that is consistently going to work and we can control it. That's another thing too, is can we control the process? So like, I have a client who has a website like run by an agency in India, and like we're actually trying to migrate a little bit away from that platform because it will give us a lot more agility to create new offers, set up pages and stuff, and just like basically be a lot more agile when we have to move things versus if something has to get changed on the website, it has to go through them. It takes them time. It's custom build. They have to code it versus the more of the process that we can control, it gives us more certainty because we know our abilities, what we bring to the table and what we can do. And like the more of that we can control, the more consistency it gives us whenever, we want to launch an offer or like do a certain tweak or something like that. So I guess at a more higher level, it's basically like, what are the things that we can control ourselves? And like, that's how we hedge our bets. We spend a lot of time there. That's what gives us predictability in the business. And then we free up like 20% to take the big swings.
And that 20% sometimes works and then you can explode, or sometimes it doesn't work, but it doesn't take you away from the long-term goal.
Exactly. Right. Like if it completely sucked, like total flop, it wouldn't really impact you that much.
Yeah, you can afford that loss. I wish more copywriters approached freelancing like that, because the way you describe it is very in line with my belief about how to deal with predictability, because I don't see freelancing income as certain and as much controlled as, let's say, very, very established clients that have a long-term relationship with you. Whereas freelance, like one-time projects, or you close a client, you've got them for a few months, it's not really real established recurring revenue yet, because it's like you just kind of got started with somebody. And then a lot of copywriters, they look at their income and they're like, oh, I'm making 5 to 10K a month. And you see those testimonials from copy gurus or whatever, and somebody's like, oh, I just hit 10K. And it's like, well, that 10K is not a predictable, stable 10K. It's like you've got 3 very, very fragile client relationships that 2 of them could leave next month and you're at 3K. And it's stressful because you've increased your lifestyle and
I've been there before too. Like that's another thing too. It's like working with the bigger clients too is usually a little bit more predictable. Like you do things at a high level and you know that if you just show up and keep doing things at a high level, introducing ideas when they make fit, like you said earlier, like here's 3 things that we can test. Like I have a client where I'll give them different flow ideas. So like I'll build them a new flow each month on top of like regular newsletter sends that we're doing. And like that's kind of something that proves my value that like I'm hitting the KPIs and like kind of doing the roles, but I'm also going above and beyond by like looking at their Google Analytics data, seeing opportunities, oh, like a bunch of people are reading this blog article right here. Like we can probably deploy some type of like little slide in or like offer or something like that to get more leads here. And then maybe we can do like a flow or something there, like just little kind of things like that like they wouldn't see because they're too busy running the business. Right. So like when you bring ideas that can provide a tangible increase to the bottom line, and like they don't have time to be like a scientist inside of their business versus like you, like, if your client is using whatever, like Hyros or Power BI or Google Analytics, like anything like that, Mixpanel, something that has like good customer data and stuff that you can peek into and kind of like identify the opportunities and stuff. It's also like you're looking like an investor looking at the market or whatever, like stock trader. And like you're looking at the way they would look at stock charts. You're kind of just looking at the marketing data, customer data, and like drawing parallels between, how the things connect, how their business runs. And like, that's how you can kind of pinpoint what the opportunities are. And then you can ask yourself, okay, if we did this, like, how would that impact everything else in the business? And then would it impact everything else? And then would those be bad impacts, good impacts? And then is this something that like wouldn't impact any of the throughput of their entire bit? Because you don't want to like impact the systems that they've already built out too much. Like for established clients, they're less agile. It's a lot harder for them to make changes to their business, and they're a lot less reluctant to want to make those changes. But if you identify opportunities that don't require them to really change anything, but can basically just add like extra revenue, like right on top of what they're already doing, like that is a great opportunity. So that's like what I like to do with more established clients is, obviously I deliver the work of their regular broadcast emails, but I'm also spotting the gaps too of like where are the opportunities that are just basically just extra money that they can just get, how can I just find untapped revenue streams inside of their business and like give them those ideas and like build out new custom flows and stuff, email segments, like things like that are just bonuses too. And that gives you the predictability, right? And then after doing that for a while with established clients, that gives me the freedom to, take the bigger swings to explore like revenue partnerships with maybe less established clients, but it's like I get a percentage of someone else's business and like I can grow that and like my percentage will grow directly proportionate to that.
I love that. So it's not only about increasing certainty and predictability with the 80% of your energy, and then the 20% is testing new stuff. It's also finding little gaps, so they're like easy wins that compound. And then you actually can, like, not only is it 80% for proven stuff, but it actually just boosts the business as well, because you're finding all those little gaps. Where did you learn all this stuff? Like all the details of what you do. This is very advanced. Even though it's also very fundamental, it's also very sophisticated strategy.
Well, dude, I'd say like being a lawyer too, right? Like not like a lawyer in practice, but the lawyer principle. You learn things from working with different businesses, and then you kind of like test different things, and then you find systems that work. And like, I can't reveal the exact source here, but I will say like, I kind of learned the 80-20 principle, like working with bigger clients, launching email stuff. And, I learned that you can really double down on what's working. Like you could literally copy paste offers that have worked in the past. And like, it's not going to impact your revenue that much. Like you can literally take a product that you've launched in the past to a list and like just relaunch it to your email list again. And maybe take like, if you sent like 10 emails to promote that thing, you can take like 8 of the best performing emails that worked in the past, and you can like copy paste those and maybe just change like the subject line, the hook or something like that, like minimal work, and just resend that to your list. And then, that like we send these kinds of emails, literally like these exact emails, we should make this amount of money by promoting this to our list. And then the remaining 2, right? So if you're doing a 10 email campaign, the past 8, you took the past 8 high performers, you're reusing those. And then the remaining 2, whatever, those could be email controls, new ideas and stuff. And like, you're also looking at the past 10 emails too. You looked at the high performers. What were the lowest performers? Like, what did they not do? Is there any opportunity there where you can make them better? Maybe it's like, is there a subject line win here? Is the copy that strong, but we didn't get good opens or something? Maybe there's a subject line win, or maybe there's like something in the call to action or something. Do all these other emails, do they have bullets? This one doesn't have bullets. Well, maybe if we add like some good bullets here too, like this might work. Or is it the PS section? Is it the from name? Is it the preview text? All those different variables, or is it just the main big idea of the email itself? So you're looking at things that you can change there to either make it better, or you just scrap those emails and come up with a completely new idea and swing for the fences, right? Like maybe it'll be an email control, right?
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, email control is like the best email that a company has for a particular offer.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. That actually few people might not know what the controls are. Beating controls is a big thing with big companies because they have the data. I always find it so fascinating. It's like it's human nature, and people just buy, and some people buy and some people don't buy. And yet with big businesses, you can predictably, actually, it's so weird. When I was running this list, I was like, how is it that I know from the previous data that I can run this email, I'm going to get this kind of open rate, I'm going to get like this kind of click-through rate, I'm going to get this many sales. And it's just random people, like last time it was these people that bought, this time it was these people, they're different people, and yet the data is still sort of, it's very predictable. It's
probably because it's so boring. It's probably because it's so boring, and it's something that nobody really wants to do. Like nobody wants to invest in having strong data infrastructure, but that provides an ultimate moat around your business, because like nobody's going to be able to just put your stuff into a power ad spy tool or whatever. Like, these competitor spy tools, like you have your own in-house data that is your own sales analytics and stuff. Like, yeah, maybe you can pay some like company, or maybe there's some database out there to get that proprietary data, but most likely not at the granular level that you have it. So if you're an established company that's been there for decades and you have this in-house data, and you have it because you invested into having good data infrastructure that you can then keep track of over decades, right? That's one of the most important investments that you can make. And then it makes everyone else's job so much easier too.
Yeah. Because you're not guessing.
Yeah. The people who have that data know, oh, we could just use the data.
So last like sort of segue here. How do you even go about applying any of this stuff to your own business as a business owner, getting clients and building your own practice for growth marketing?
I reverse engineer, what got me clients in the past. And then I look at ways to buy back my time there. Like I like systems. I like, consistency. So, I have VAs, appointment setters that set outbound messages on my Instagram, on my Facebook. So that kind of gives me like consistency to where I know like, okay, if we send X number of messages this way, like I'm doing pretty low volume there too. Like I'm not going aggressive scaling, like 10 messages per day is actually what we're doing. And like, I know that if we send 10 messages per day, like we're going to get X number of appointments a week, X number of introductions, that's going to lead to X number of sales, those kinds of things.
I like it. It's so simple, it's just do it. It's just do it. And a lot of the time, yeah, it's really supposed to be boring. I think a lot of people want to find the dopamine hit within business and they try and make business this exciting thing. For me, that just turns into fires. If you have an entrepreneur that wants to have like all kinds of excitement, then it's like you just want to have a business on fire all the time. If it's boring, it's a good thing. You should smile if your business is a little bit boring. Then you can actually go and find something else, like go find a untapped gold mine in the business. That's where you find the dopamine. You don't find the dopamine from, no, just please. Yeah, like the copywriters, I don't know, they get addicted to this like, oh, just close the client. Oh, I just lost a client. Oh, just close the client. Oh, just lost a client. It's very toxic. It's very toxic. Just like get predictable. I had a copywriter once tell me, I don't want to work with this client because I feel like I'm an employee working for them. And I'm like, okay, but I'm pretty sure that $5K a month feels a lot better than being at zero. So until you can create some predictability and repeatability, maybe don't be so upset that you're getting paid $5,000 from like an amazing business. Like just have a good attitude about it and go and get more work. Anyway, it's yeah, I think when people just start implementing consistency and start taking more action, like the things that you're sharing, you will get results. And you've seen this, I mean, with the dojo as well. Like a lot of the people I work with, they come in expecting, even though we make this joke like there's no secrets, some of them still kind of think that there's a secret, like they like start working with me like, okay, like now we're gonna get the real source. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about like, how do you currently get clients? Let's start there. How do you currently generate business for yourself? How do you currently deliver? What kind of services do you currently deliver for your clients? Cool. There's patterns. Let's first get that stuff optimized. Let's go find all the untapped opportunities. Let's go look in the cracks where potentially you're not following up with people, or you're leaving deals on the table, where you're not closing deals on sales calls that you could close. And now suddenly they're at 10K without even doing anything new yet. So if you're watching this, you might actually be able to get a lot more revenue without any extra coaching. Matt, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you about this stuff. I think we could go on for a very long time about the details of email marketing. I really love it. If people want to get in touch with you and get help from you to scale their business, or copywriters want to chat, where can they find you?
Yeah, go to my Instagram page at the Matt Hmel.
The Matt Hmel, okay.
Or go to matthmel.com.
I like it. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and I'll chat with you soon.
Nice, brother. Sounds good. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Take care.